Pidd is a former colleague of mine from the ABC. These days he's a global partner and managing director, Asia Pacific, at a consultancy called Conversant, and he's going to address us now on the topic, So You Think You're Strategic. Good on you, Colin.
If you're looking today for recipes around strategic thinking, you've already got them on Google. You want a list of how to do strategy, go there. I want to talk more about how we be around strategy, how we be in that strategic conversation. I actually started life, was a child obviously, but I started life in the rag trade, in the fashion industry, and many, many years ago, and you wouldn't know that now, but, and that always intrigued me, was about, because I went to uni and dropped out. I went back later, and I was always intrigued about why the hell, how do you predict what you're going to sell in 2 years' time? Because back then you had to order 2 years in advance. And I was intrigued by why could some shop managers do that and some just couldn't do it. What was that about? So that's always begun to intrigue me. There's a beautiful piece of work. You've probably played inside those, many of you have done management games, consulting games, and you get a piece of spaghetti and you build a tower and you compete with each other and all that crap. I actually hate them, but that's another story. And you know, how far can you put the marshmallow on? Have you all been there a little bit? You've done some of those things, yeah? And then at the end you get debriefed and better communication and should have planned more and stuff. It's all bloody obvious before you even start. But there's a really interesting, but they've done a lot of research now, about this stuff. And so, first of all, let me tell you who are the best, the very best, to build these traits. Architects and engineers, and I'm really pleased about that, right? But put that technical stuff aside, who are the worst? Male exiting MBA students are the worst at it. They're jockeying for power, they want to prove they're right and all that sort of stuff. The second worst at it? CEOs. They're shit. Same sort of stuff going on. But here's the rub. You take the CEO's executive assistants and put them in the mix, they do brilliantly. And we'll come back to that in a minute. The very best, 6-year-old children. Unbelievable. Because they experiment, they play, they're playful, there's no ego in the game, and they're extraordinary. So my nana died a few years ago now. She nearly 100. She died very well, and please don't be sorry, it was a gift the way she died. But she was part of a study at Leeds University where they took a whole bunch of women in their 90s and just said, what's it like to be on the planet for nearly 100 years? Just tell us about life. And they took all these stories and they put them together and they worked out some patterns. And then they took a whole bunch of women in their 30s and asked them exactly the same question. What's it like these days to be on the planet? And then they did some story analysis. And they came to some very interesting conclusions. The first one was, at the deepest level, human needs haven't changed for millions of years. We want to be loved, we want to be connected, we want to contribute. We want to be heard. So for all the complexity, the core humanness hasn't changed. And at the core of strategy, that remains, regardless of the complexity. Nike, who've had their ethical and moral dilemmas in the past, absolutely. With the advent of Amazon and all those companies, they are having to work really hard. The current CEO in this big, complex environment has changed the practice of how his team think when it comes to thinking strategically, being stewards of the company. At the beginning of every single meeting he runs, he has 5 minutes of silence. People just sit and be and slow down. This notion of slowing down to speed up, slowing down to be smarter, slowing down so the whole of you can be in the place. And I love that. So the populations have changed. Technology shifted. You know that. And we know this whole thing about artificial intelligence. DeepMind beat the world champion at Go, a really complex Chinese game. Didn't just win, smashed the world champion. And every game got better and better and better. That's scary. It's also extraordinary. One job that's gone is the futurist. It's gone. They cannot tell us anything. They didn't anyway they didn't predict Donald Trump, that narcissistic prick. Misogynist, I can keep going on. I'm sure his mum loved him. Russia, Iran, GFC, Brexit. So you have to be the futurist. You have to be the one sitting in that kind of complexity. I was at a Work Economic Forum gig last year, and we were talking about where they're seeing extraordinary growth, extraordinary organisations, people doing amazing things. And at the core of it is, and it was touched on some of the stuff that Michael Kirby talked about the other day, which is this notion of inclusion. Courages and wisdoms. The guy who spoke to us actually had an accent. He was French. And I kept thinking he means courage and wisdom. And somebody else asked him. He said, no. And I can't do the accent. I mean courages and wisdoms. He said, because you need to have people around you who are different to you. People have got you cannot get courage and wisdom from a book. If you look for people who are just like you, white, Anglo-Saxon, old, white guy, you'll get white, Anglo-Saxon, white guy stuff. I've got enough of that. I need something else. So do you tap into the courages and wisdoms around you? That's why when you add in the executive assistants to the CEOs, that suddenly becomes a smarter group of people. Rational decision-making matters. Evidence decision-making matters. But often we bring it in way too early when we're trying to think about possibility. And for many of us, that's very, very uncomfortable. It matters, it's when you bring it in. So one of the rules in our company is no squishy faces. They won't work. Because a squishy face tends to connote somebody's gone to the rational. But here's some examples where we can get it wrong. I won't tell you which company because for obvious reasons. Sometimes we make simple things ridiculously complex. Consultants are good at it. That's how we make our money. We make it too hard for you to understand, then you've got to spend days paying for it. No, seriously. One of the big supermarket companies here decided that there's this group of people, and I'm classic, that when they walk in the super, we are discretionary spenders. So I haven't got a list. I go in, I don't pick up a basket, and I go looking for, and I love shopping because my retail thing, I look to where's that's there. And then I get to a point and go, oh, I wouldn't mind, that's Maggie Beer's stuff. I love that. I'm going to have some of that. Next thing I got this on, right? If I can't find a basket, then I stop spending. So they try to work out, where can we put baskets in the right place so those fools like that Colin Pidd will spend more money? Pretty smart. Well, they spent $300,000 with a consulting company trying to work out where to put these baskets, because it's worth a lot of money. It was not that complex. It was not that complex. There's a supermarket in this particular chain up around here, literally by coincidence around here in the Gold Coast. And they could tell that this shop somehow had cracked the code. And the one in Hobart as well, it turns out. So the very chief executive comes up to this supermarket up here. How do you know what to do? How do you know? We just spent $300,000 and McKinsey, somebody couldn't tell us, even though they spent $300,000. And this young woman behind the deli said, I just watched these people and then I started to look where they started to look. And I just put the baskets when they started to look. Magic. So don't complicate things, but it's also a beautiful example of asking folks who aren't you about a possibility. How can we get Coke within an arm's length of desire? We invented cans. We invented hotel fridges. Beautiful question. Disney changed its shops because Steve Jobs said to the people who run the Disney shops, they said, Steve, you've joined us at Disney, what are we going to do? He said, what about this? What if visiting a Disney shop was the best half an hour of every child's life?
It's easy to put people in boxes. There's us, and there's them. The high earners, and those just getting by. Those we trust, and those we try to avoid. There's the new Danes, and those who've always been here. The people from the countryside, and those who've never seen a cow. The religious, and the self-confident. There are those we share something with, and those we don't share anything with.
Velkommen. Jeg kommer til at stille jer nogle spørgsmål i dag. Nogle af dem kan godt være lidt personlige, men jeg håber, I vil svare ærligt på dem. Hvem herinde i rummet var klassens klovn? Hvem er bonusforældre?
And then suddenly, there's us. We who believe in life after death. We who've seen UFOs. And all of us who love to dance. We who've been bullied. And we who've bullied others. And then there's us, the lucky ones who've had sex this past week. We who are broken-hearted. We who are madly in love. We who feel lonely. We who are bisexual. And we who acknowledge the courage of others. We who have found the meaning of life. And we who have saved lives. And then there's all of us who just love Denmark. So maybe there's more that brings us together than we think. TV2 Denmark. All that we share.